Committee substitute for Senate Bill 36, authorizing Department of Homeland Security to promulgate legislative rules.
The message be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 196, West Virginia Rail Trails Program.
The message be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Government Organization and the Committee on Judiciary.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 222, exempting West Virginia veterans from certain fees and charges at state parks.
The message be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources and the Committee on Finance.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 261, West Virginia Veterans Home Loan Mortgage Program of 2024.
The message be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 445, reducing certification periods and renewal fees for EMS personnel.
The message be received. The bill will be referred to the Committee on Fire Departments and Emergency Medical Services and the Committee on Government Organization. Do we have other Senate messages? If not, resolutions.
House Concurrent Resolution 53.
Gentleman from the 96th.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of resolutions introduced be dispensed with, and that each resolution be considered as formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as indicated on the chamber automation system.
The gentleman asked unanimous consent that the further reading of resolutions introduced be dispensed with, and that each resolution be considered as having been formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as indicated on the chamber automation system. Are there objections? No objections are heard. Petitions. Bills introduced.
House Bill 5339.
Gentleman 96th.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of bills introduced be dispensed with, and that each bill be considered as formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as indicated on the chamber automation system.
The gentleman asked unanimous consent that the further reading of bills introduced be dispensed with, and that each bill be considered as having been formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as indicated on the chamber automation system. Are there objections? There are no objections. Motions. Unfinished business. Bills on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4017 to modify certain election laws, early voting laws, and absentee voting laws.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? There are no objections. Gentleman from the 51st to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill makes some changes to the election laws. It provides that a time certain for the close of voter registrations, which is 11:59 if doing the act online, or if in person as of the close of business at the clerk's office. It adds a provision that any person who intentionally coerces or offers payment in exchange for a person to register to vote is guilty of a misdemeanor, and upon conviction shall be fined not more than $1,000 or confined in jail not more than 1 year, or both fined and confined. The bill also provides that a person who files an absentee ballot and intentionally votes in person is guilty of a felony, and upon conviction thereof shall be fined not more than $1,000 or confined in jail for not less than 1 year, nor more than 10 years, or both fined and confined. That is a summary of the bill, Mr. Speaker.
The question now before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Gentleman from the 25th, Delegate Hornbuckle is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the chair please yield for a question?
Yes.
Thank you. I am looking at this bill, I believe it is on page 6, lines 92 through 94. It is the first portion of this piece of legislation where we inserted the language, any person who intentionally coerces or offers payment in exchange for a person to register to vote is guilty of a misdemeanor, and upon conviction thereof shall be fined not more than $1,000 or confined in jail for not more than 1 year, or both fined and confined. And so my first question is, I'm not on the committee, have we clearly defined what coercion is in this piece of legislation?
It's not defined. It would have its plain meaning and according to common law.
Okay. Have we also defined payment and what that can mean? Is that just fiscal in nature, or could that be other items?
It just means what it says, payment.
So that means it's open to being more than just monetary. It could be payment of anything rendered, correct?
I believe payment, yes.
Okay, thank you. May I have permission to speak to the bill?
Yes, gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, all of us in here, it is of my belief that are for safe, secure, fair elections. I would also urge the body to slow down and be careful of what we're doing here. While the intent might be very good, we have just heard through our Judiciary Chair, this is open to anything. It's not just about giving somebody some money and having them vote up register a whole bunch of folks. If we don't take the time on this piece of legislation, I am fearful that it's going to hurt our college Republicans. I'm fearful it's going to hurt our college Democrats. Most of us have been on a college campus where you duke it out back and forth, you trade barbs, but at the end of the day, you're trying to be in part of the process and promote civic engagement. And to do so, you'll have a little table, have some waters, have some cookies, and tell people about your proposition, your values, your opportunity, and say, hey, be a part of the process. I'm afraid we've gone too far. I've also read in an article that we had state and local officials help to register students to vote at Capitol High School. Every single year, our Secretary of State has a program where they will help kids to be civically engaged, and they will reward them. So much so that our current Secretary of State, Mac Warner, has done this and has a program that any West Virginia high school that registers at least 85% of their eligible students to vote will receive the Jennings Randolph Award for civic engagement. This is problematic. This piece of legislation in front of us could potentially not only harm those high school students and the before mentioned college students, but our Secretary of State. This could criminalize our Secretary of State. And so I would urge us with the language to slow down, and we need to rethink what we're doing here because it could be problematic. Thank you.
Question again before the House is shall the bill pass. Is there debate on the bill? Is there debate on the bill? If there's not debate on the bill, the question is shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There are 90 ayes, 7 nays, 3 members absent. Majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4017 to modify certain election laws, early voting laws, and absentee voting laws.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Gentleman from 96th.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill take effect January 1st, 2025.
The question now before the House is the gentleman's motion that the bill take effect January 1st, 2025. Those in favor of the gentleman's motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there were 91 ayes, 5 nays, and 4 members absent, 2/3 of members having voted in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill effective January 1st, 2025. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4350 relating to appointment of candidates after filing period.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? No objections are heard. Gentleman from the 51st to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Currently, in the event no one files to run in a party primary where the office is filled by partisan election, a political party may fill the vacancy up to 3 weeks following the close of filing. This bill would remove that opportunity, and an office where no person had filed would simply remain vacant unless no person files with any party. In the case that no person files with any party, the applicable party can then fill the vacancy thereafter according to the normal fashion. Also, in an instance where a candidate has filed and withdrawn or has died, a vacancy could still be filled. That is a summary of the bill, Mr. Speaker.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Gentleman from the 79th Delegate Hansen is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill is one of a set of bills that will suppress voter turnout. The previous bill does that. As our minority leader stated, it will make it illegal to offer something of de minimis value, a bottle of water, something like that, at a table where somebody might decide to register to vote. That's the last bill. Fewer people will register to vote. But that's not all. There's a bill making its way through the system that would make it illegal to provide an absentee ballot application to somebody who's sick or elderly. So we don't want people voting absentee either. There's this bill that we're debating right now that will make it harder for candidates to be on the ballot. This is a bill that protects incumbents. That doesn't help us with engaging voters if they don't have a choice of who to vote for. And there's a fourth bill that passed last week that inserts this legislature into local election disputes. All of these bills taken together will suppress voter turnout. I don't know about you, but I think it's a good thing to encourage the sick and elderly to vote. And if they need to vote absentee, that's what we should be doing. I want it to be clearly legal for people or organizations to encourage others to register to vote. I think we want as many people as possible registered to vote. We should encourage that behavior, not threaten people with jail time. I don't want the legislature to have the power to intervene in an election dispute in my county or in my town. And I sure as heck don't want a bill that protects incumbents of either party. So I'm against this bill, I'm against all these bills, and I would leave you with the question of why? Why are we running bills to suppress voter turnout? What are people scared of?
The gentleman from the 80th Delegate Williams recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the Judiciary Chairman yield just for a couple quick questions?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. A clarifying question that I have. So at present, if no one has filed for an office, the party may get someone on the primary ballot. But then it's also my understanding that if they say, oh, shoot, we couldn't get anybody for the primary ballot, that there's also a period over the summer which they could nominate. Does this just address the primary process or the summer as well?
The summer process that you just outlined was closed a couple of years ago. So
We closed that a couple years ago? Okay.
Yes.
So this would, in effect, completely limit the time that you could get someone on the ballot?
This does apply to the primaries, and in fact, if no one exercises their God-given right to file a certificate of announcement during the time period, which could be years. You can file a pre-candidacy paper nearly 2 years before an election. If no one does that, then that's where this would apply.
Thank you for the
So you have a
clarification.
lot of time.
Sure.
The point is, file in a timely manner.
Thank you for the clarification. Appreciate it.
Gentleman from the 37th Delegate Gearhart's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I am not generally inclined to explain a vote. here on the floor, so I'm going to beg your indulgence for a quick moment. I think I may possess a unique quality, as I have been appointed to the ballot, not just once. I've been appointed to the ballot twice. The last time I was appointed to the ballot, that process is still preserved within this bill. So that really isn't an issue. I want to talk about the first time, though, I was appointed to the ballot, which was in 2008. And in 2008, I had a burning desire to see the incumbent congressman replaced. However, I thought possibly someone else might remove that burden from me, but as we got closer to the end of filing time, they didn't do that. So on the last day of filing, I put together my application form, my filing form and check, and mailed that into the Secretary of State's office to be the Republican candidate to run for the 3rd Congressional District. And I was excited about it until later in the week, I got a letter from the Secretary of State's office indicating that my filing had been rejected. And it had been rejected because I had an issue with regard to my signature on the filing. Now, I want to tell you, when you want to be appointed under the current process for a congressional race, at that point in time, it took 17 different county committees to come together and to put together the process in order to put someone on the ballot. It was difficult, but it was accomplished. The results didn't change because my desire to replace the congressman was replacing a 17-term incumbent. And on election day, I did not get the result that I had a burning desire to achieve. However, having availed myself of this process, I think it would be hypocritical for me to vote in favor of eliminating that process to others. Thus, my explanation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from the 54th, Delegate Pushkin's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the lead sponsor of the bill yield for a few questions?
Gentleman does yield.
Thank you. I was wondering, what problem are we trying to address with this bill?
Sure. So I've introduced this bill for 2 or 3 sessions, the same piece of legislation. The reason behind it is I think all candidates, doesn't matter if it's an incumbent, doesn't matter if it's somebody challenging an incumbent, deserves to know who their opponents will be, number one. Number two, if they will have an opponent. Number three, when the filing period closes, the candidates that have filed have followed the process that's set out before us, which is pretty lengthy period, the filing period is. And then other people can come in and just be appointed. That doesn't seem, I think it's fundamentally unfair. So that's my reason.
Okay, so you said you had the idea? Is your idea?
It was my idea, yes.
Is your idea?
Yes.
And so incumbents know who they're going to run against?
No, that's not what I said, sir. I said so any candidate knows who they're going to run against. Once filing's closed, it doesn't matter if you're an incumbent or not. You see who you're running against. I mean, it could be a candidate for an open seat. It doesn't matter if it's an incumbent. That doesn't make any sense.
Would we not know who we're going to run against after the deadline for the county committees and then the county chairs, which is just a couple weeks longer?
Sure, absolutely. But what's the point of a filing period if we don't follow it?
Well, we have several deadlines, but thank you for yielding. I appreciate
sir.
that.
Thank you.
There are already several deadlines right now. There's the candidate filing period. If a candidate of either party fails to file, then the county committees or the delegate or senatorial committees have a chance to make that ballot appointment like they did for my friend from the 37th. And it turned out it worked out fairly well for him. And then after that, I think there's like 3 days after that, if the committees are unable to act, then those county chairs are able to do it. And what that does is it allows voters to have more choices. Because what I have not heard, and I doubt anybody in here has heard from any of their constituents, that voters have too many choices. There are too many candidates on the ballot. We're not hearing that. We might hear, on day 21 of the legislature, some things we don't have enough of, but that isn't candidates on the ballot. We don't have enough teachers in the classroom, not addressing that today. We don't have enough COs in our correctional facilities, but we're not addressing that today. We don't have enough placements for 8,000 children in foster care. Not addressing that today. We think we have too many candidates on the ballot, too many choices for voters. That's what we're going to be voting on today. There's several gas-producing counties up in northern West Virginia that are probably feeling they don't have not enough of their revenue from gas because of some great decisions that were made in this room and some poor management skills on the first floor of this building. We're not taking that up yet on day 21 of the legislature. No, we're going to take up too many choices for voters, too many candidates on the ballot. This is a bill that only protects incumbency. The only people that care about this bill are sitting in this room or down the hall or in a couple county courthouses across the state. So when you're voting for this, ask yourself, who are you here to serve? Your constituents, the voters who deserve choices, or yourself? I'll be voting against this bill. It is self-serving at its worst.
Gentleman from the 76th District, Garcia, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So unfortunately, this is an overtly partisan, incumbent favoring bill. And things were not always the way they are right now when it comes to the makeup of the legislature in the state of West Virginia. I remember getting involved in government probably about 12 years ago, and at that time, the number of races that didn't have an R on the ballot in the House of Delegates was somewhat similar to what we're looking at now with Democrats. And this apparently is becoming a pattern as far as access to the ballot, access to choice. And it's consistent with, I guess, the most recent movement to have closed primaries on the Republican side, when back in the 1980s, when things were different, Republicans led the way to have open primaries, to give voters, including unaffiliated voters and independent voters, a choice. And Democrats followed back then. Democrats weren't the leaders back then, Republicans did. But now the Republicans have the power, have most of the seats in this House and in the Senate. Now is when the legislature is going to change a rule like this, which is going to make it harder to give the people a choice in their elections. And if it's a matter about knowing who your opponent's going to be, a couple weeks later, I think you have plenty of time to prepare for that, to prepare for the challenge. And I really don't think this is about anything other than partisan politics. For that reason, I'm voting against the bill.
Gentleman from the 29th, Dillon's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the chair yield for question?
Yes.
Chair does yield.
Yes.
Thank you. In the case of a technicality in a filing or a dispute regarding a filing for a primary, what remedy would be available under current code for a candidate to dispute that?
Are you asking under current code?
Yes.
Current code, if there's a vacancy, then it would be a vacancy if someone tried to file and it was rejected, as the gentleman explained, and then the committee could appoint if no one, in essence, no one would have filed in that scenario.
So to clarify, is there a remedy or is there any course of action for a candidate who is rejected on a technicality, who disputes that technicality? Is there any recourse or course of action for such an individual?
Under this bill?
Under current code?
Under current code, as I just described, yes.
Okay. And what would that, for the purpose of the candidate, other than going through the filing procedure, and getting the vacancy filled through appointment. Is there any other remedy
Not that I'm aware of.
essentially to dispute the original ruling by the Secretary of State, is what I'm asking?
The only remedy that I can think of would be to file a petition in court, to have the court weigh in on it.
Okay.
But other than that, no.
Under this piece of legislation, would that remedy still be available?
They could file a writ of mandamus and ask the higher court to order the Secretary of State to do something different than was done.
Okay. Thank you.
Gentleman from the 27th, Dr. Griffith is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the things that I've observed as an individual is some of the best people that I know across this state do not engage in what we have as elected officials. It's hard to get them to. They're wonderful people, highly qualified people, people who say, I just don't want to deal with that. And so that's why sometimes we have a party, an individual party slot not filed for. They just don't want to do it. But you still have the opportunity to convince that person to make the foolish step that we did. When I filed this last time, I went into the office and I asked, is this the room in which people make terrible decisions? And the clerk smiled and said, yes. It is tough to do this job. It is tough to get good people to do this job. And I always say the best people I have known were not elected officials. The greatest heroes in my life never took this step. However, if this bill passes, we don't stand a chance convincing some of those people who often say, well, if nobody else will run, I will. They wait, and then they wait too late. And this gives local individuals to try to get someone on the ballot that they want. And like during the current national debate about someone being removed from a ballot, I hear continually, let the people decide. So if a local party appoints someone under the current situation, the people will decide if they want that individual. So I do encourage you to think about this, and it takes more opportunity away from the people of that good person who might not have the initial inclination to file for this office. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Question still is, shall the bill pass? Is there other debate on this bill? If not, yes, Gentleman from 35th, Doug Vance is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the Chairman of Judiciary please yield for some questions?
Yes.
Is there not filing periods for these candidates to file?
There certainly are.
Did we not just close it every 2 years? We have chances of running. There's an election every 2 years in this state.
That is correct.
And so if I want somebody to run for something, I've got 2 years at least to go to them and talk to them and try to talk them in to running.
Absolutely.
I don't see the problem with this bill then. I've got 2 years, 4 years for a Senate seat and all that. There shouldn't be extra time to just grab somebody and say, here you are on the ballot. So I'm going to be a big yes on this. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there other debate on the bill? Gentleman from the 14th, Doug Fogan is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would you yield for another question, sir?
Yes.
If there was a candidate and before the election they passed away, could we still nominate someone?
Yes, that is specifically preserved in this bill.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I
In other
appreciate
words,
it.
the person filed and then passed away and left then a vacancy, yes, it's specifically provided for in this bill.
Thank you.
Question again is, shall the bill pass? Is there other debate on the bill? If not, does the gentleman wish to close debate on the bill? Gentleman from the 51st is recognized to close debate on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, the sound bites can be rampant sometimes in this chamber. Just stating that it is a bill to protect incumbents doesn't make it so. Just stating that it is a bill to suppress Voting doesn't make it so. What this does is simply provides a deadline that is actually already in the code. The deadline's there, that's not changing, but it's making it a firm deadline. And so I would urge passage of the bill, Mr. Speaker.
Gentlemen's closed debate on the bill. The question now before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There are 79 ayes, 18 nays, 3 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4350 relating to appointment of candidates after filing period.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Gentleman 96th.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill take effect January 1st, 2025.
The question is on the gentleman's motion that the bill take effect January 1st, 2025. Those in favor of the gentleman's motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There are 87 ayes, 10 nays, and 3 members absent. 2/3 of members having voted in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill effective January 1st, 2025. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 4434 relating to restrictions on use or sale of motor vehicles based on power source.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? There are no objections. Gentleman 22nd, Doug Linville, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 4434 would prohibit the state agencies and local government units from restricting the sale or use of motor vehicles based on the energy sources used to power the vehicles. It does define a motor vehicle, bars state and local government units from restricting that sale within their respective jurisdictions, and does provide clarity that this bill does not affect any policy established by a state agency or local governmental unit related to its purchase of motor vehicles. That is a summary of the bill, Mr. Speaker, and I do urge its passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Gentleman from the 54th, Doug Pushkin, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the chairman yield?
Yes.
Thank you. Would this, if this bill passes and signed into law, would it reverse the ban on the Tesla business model that was passed in 2015?
I believe that's surrounding the franchise laws and the ability for there to be a dealer which would sell those items, and so that is not about the combustion source or engine, so I would believe the answer to that would be no.
Oh, since we banned their business model, we could still prevent them from doing business here, but not a car based on its energy source is basically what you're saying, right?
I think that General Motors or Ford or any other entity which utilizes the dealer model, which is the means by which they became billion-dollar companies and never could have sold their vehicles, but for building their business off the back of local dealers who donate to all your sporting events and so on and so forth, but for that's the only reason why Tesla is presently not allowed to be sold directly in the state of West Virginia, and has nothing to do with this bill.
Gotcha. So just not Tesla. Thank you.
The question is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Is there debate on the bill? Does the gentleman wish to close debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There are 88 ayes, 8 nays, and 4 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4434 relating to restrictions on use or sale of motor vehicles based on power source.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 4860, providing that a general education teacher may not be responsible for accommodation logs.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, chair recognizes the gentleman to 50th, Doug Pritt, to explain the bill.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. So House Bill 4860 amends Code 18-20-1C to state that the general education teacher is not responsible for daily accommodation logs and clarifies that their responsibilities for accommodations are acknowledging during the grading period that they are providing the accommodations. So that's a summary, and I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
You've heard the bill explained. The question now before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 90 ayes, 7 nays, and 3 members absent. The majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares that bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4860, providing that a general education teacher may not be responsible for accommodation logs.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next, bill on third reading.
House Bill 4976, providing the contact information of the Inspector General on the agencies and boards' websites of the executive departments.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? There are no objections. Gentleman to 68, Delegate Phillips, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of House Bill 4976 is to provide the contact information of the Inspector General on the agencies and boards' websites of the executive departments. I urge passage.
The question now before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 97 ayes, 0 nays, and 3 members absent. Majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 4976, providing the contact information of the Inspector General on the agencies and boards' websites of the executive departments.
Are there title amendments?
Delegate Phillips moves to amend the title.
The question now is on the adoption of the title amendment. Those in favor of adoption of the title amendment will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. Chair declares the title amendment adopted. The title as amended by the House will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Are there other bills on third reading? If not, bills on second reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4376 relating to surgical smoke evacuation.
Are there amendments?
Delegate Foster moves to amend the bill on page 1